Hey guys, Kelade here. Welcome to a Mythic Demonic Inquisition kill/commentary video. Right above my head, those are the talents I use for this fight. On Mythic difficulty, I do use War Machine instead of Endless Rage for this fight. Whereas on normal and heroic, I would just go with my pure single target build. Though if you want to, you could also go with your pure single target build for this fight also. The difference being how often you spawn the ads and how fast you guys are killing them. For us, the way that we're doing this fight now, we try to make it like, in the beginning very concise, every like 30 seconds this group goes up or these amount of people come up. But we figured actually with this fight, with how our guild is doing it, it's almost easier for us to not do the controlled where everybody comes up at the same time. So if you manage to not get too much torment and you don't have to go down as much, you won't have that many to deal with, right? So for the fight in general, when you have 100 torment, you pretty much have to go down to the level below. And for that, you have to collect these ores, and when you collect enough ores and your torment goes to 0, you can come back up to the surface. Now, on Mythic difficulty, the only difference is that when you come back up, every time you come back up, each person that comes back up will summon an ad. Now, this ad will pick a random target in the raid to, fixate on, and they'll like chase after them. If they melee them, they gain torment. So essentially, you want to go down and up as little as possible so you guys can stay on top of the platform as much as possible, right? So that's pretty much the difference for just the mythic difficulty. Now, as far as for how I do this fight, you guys saw me in the beginning, right? I charge in and pop on my cooldowns. I'm mainly just trying to push the boss as fast as we can. And of course, whenever the ads spawn, I want to try to have my AoE ready for the ads. But like I mentioned, unless your guild, tries to do it with very concise, amounts of ad spawns at the same time, you're not going to be able to get too many of the ads grouped up like what we just had right there. So right there, we did get lucky in that kind of we had like 6 people come up at the same time. But you'll see in the rest of the video, we'll sometimes have like 1 or 2 people come up by themselves. That does make it difficult depending on how your raid is set up. If your raid has a lot of those like range daughters, this strategy is really good for us, right? If you have like Boomies, Shadow Priest, a lot of those, this strategy is probably better since they'll just dot them up. But if you have a lot of, AoE cleave with bursts like Fury Warriors, or any other melee really, then you kind of want to make them more concise. So like right here as they spawn, I'm pretty much after the initial battle cry, I'm saving all of my battle cries to just kill ads because we're sending ads up so frequently because we're not holding people to wait on the ad spawn. So you can see on the left of your screen, I'm going to just post a shot of what our DPS looks like for a raid. And then on the right side of the screen, right side of the screen, you can see what another raid might look like that has, that priority on AoE and the ads at the same time. You can see there's a drastic difference where our DPS is kind of like a slow line that kind of goes through, whereas, for some other guilds that have these really concise windows of ads popping up, you get these really like nice spikes, every 30 seconds of DPS. But essentially for this fight, my goal really to do, as much for the raid as possible is to just not get torment as much as possible. I think I only go down once in this fight to the bottom floor and I come back up. But there actually is a melee mechanic for this fight. Then there is the kick. So on Belloc, pretty much whenever he's not shrouded by the green where you can't hit him because you're getting torment, your melee wants to be on top of him because you want to kick those pains of guilt. And you guys can see on the top left on the RT note, I am the second kick. So whenever you guys see him cast, the second version of the ability, so we just split it into 3 different casts. We have 3 different interrupts set up with a main kicker and a backup kicker. And I'm just interrupting the second Pain's Guild whenever it comes up. Now, you also want to be careful as melee, and you guys have probably seen me get hit by a bunch of these, is that when those torment ads die, those little ads running around, they do an explosion, and of course, if you're a melee that's killing the ad, you might not get it on time. So you try to be aware of when those things are indeed dying, and you want to make sure you're not too close to them, right? You want to almost like start running away as they're like 2%, so you don't get caught by the explosion. I do almost die a few times for this fight because of this. And also, when you're coming out of that second floor, you can see you can generally always just charge the Belloc, and you always want to do so if you can, because there's a lot of range that's heading over to that part where we're spawning, and if they drop that those purple/bluish color, gravity fields that you can see, they do a lot of damage and they give you torment. So you want to avoid those as much as possible. So of course, unfortunately, right there was a ranged on the boss, which is unfortunate because now melee has a harder time getting to the boss. But I think that was because a range came up from underground and they sometimes you like come up where the X marker is, but we have some range saying that they actually just pop up where Belloc is, which is unfortunate. So to avoid that, you want to make sure your range isn't popping up, as he's doing the cast for that one mechanic. That mechanic doesn't hit melee. Now, I don't know if it will start targeting melee if all your range die, But so far, we never had that mechanic just target at melee. It's a range only mechanic, so you don't have to worry about it as much as melee in the stack. Just make sure your range knows not to be standing on top of a boss where they can spawn that, because it does make it really hard to kick the mob. So right there, right, another range dropped it right there. It's not too horrible because they didn't drop it on the boss, but that does give us very little room to work with if somebody's trying to kite the ads and we want to DPS them down. But once again, I'm really focused on kind of just the boss damage too. Now I do go chase some ads down if range need help. Also, piercing howl is a really great ability to use since these ads can be slowed. Also, if you have wrestle druids, you want to ask them to have vortex, right? Vortex the ads. And then if you have DKs, right? Unfortunately, our DK is downstairs, our blood DK, but they can also be gripped and slowed. They can't be like hard CC. They can't be stunned, but they can be gripped, slowed, all that jazz. And with piercing howl being an AoE slow, that slows every single ad. It's a great ability for us to take advantage. So another more into the fight, how we do this, we are 3-tanking the fight, which makes the fight much easier with how we're doing the strategy. So the strategy that we're doing essentially makes it so we don't ever have to worry about going down and going back up because there's always a tank downstairs. A Blood DK is able to drop the stacks, and essentially she can just stay down there forever, and she does. She stays downstairs forever. So we don't ever have to worry about going down, not having a tank down there, or for having healers really have to go down there. So it makes the fight much easier to have that. And the boss right here, a couple more executes and he's dead, and there we go. There's the fight. You guys saw in the beginning, we've only had these two ads or these two bosses together only in the very beginning of the fight. Kind of like how you do, forgot that dragon boss in Emerald Nightmare, but essentially we only cleave them in the beginning because eventually they get to the point where they're only going to cast their abilities, and they cast their abilities at 100 energy. So once you get further into the fight, they just start using their abilities like really often together. So we just tank them separate. Not a huge deal if cover melee can't cleave because our range can still cleave them. So, but that's it for this fight. The biggest key is how your raid is going to do the fight, right? If you guys are going to take them all the ads up at the same time, or if you're going to do them separately, if your raid is going to take them up all at the same time, you want to make sure that you always have, your Battle Cry, Odin's Fury, and any other AoE like Moonglaze or any other AoE trinkets that you guys are using. Make sure you guys are saving up for the ads and blow up the ads instantly. The faster that you guys can kill those ads, the easier this fight is, because if you guys kill the ads, instantaneously, this fight is pretty much like heroic and normal after that, because that's the only mythic mechanic is the ads. But yeah, thanks for checking out the video, guys. Feel free to subscribe to see more content. See ya.